Steven Universe is a show that primarily focuses on characters and their relationships with one another. So is it any surprise that there's an entire section of the show that's dedicated to showing their relationships in tangible form? While the relationships between two or more characters are shown through spoken dialogue and actions, Steven Universe even takes it one step further and turns the relationship between multiple characters into their own individual being. The being that is created from the union of two or more characters is called a fusion. Fusions were first introduced in season 1 of Steven Universe in the episode Giant Woman. When Steven is eaten by a corrupted gem monster, Amethyst and Pearl join forces to save him, fusing into a gem by the name of Opal. As explained by Pearl earlier in that same episode, a fusion is an amalgam of the gems fusing together. In other words, a gem fusion combines the physical properties of the individuals participating to create one uniform body. Not only does it combine their physical forms, but it also combines their physical prowess and general abilities as well. This can be shown most clearly through Obsidian, who is the fusion between Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, and Steven. They are able to put up a fight against the giant diamond ship, as well as combine their weapons into a giant sword. This is also why Malachite can use Lapis Lazuli's hydrokinesis while also using Jasper's spin dash ability while she fought against Alexandrite on Mask Island. However, fusion can only be successfully done when there is a strong relationship between all involved parties. If the relationship is toxic or unstable, you get a fusion like Malachite. Her counterparts are always fighting for control, and she doesn't form her own personality separate from Jasper or Lapis. Instead, she becomes a being that's never fully one, and instead there are two minds at war. And on the opposite end, you have Garnet. Garnet is a perfect example of a healthy fusion. While she is the combination of Ruby and Sapphire, she isn't either of them. Garnet is her own separate being. She has her own personality, and she is her own gem. And as explained in the episode Love Letters, she is a physical manifestation of Ruby and Sapphire's love for one another. This is why when Ruby and Sapphire are upset with each other and the strength of their relationship is wavering, you can more clearly see Ruby and Sapphire's separate personalities even while they're still fused. This usually either ends with them splitting apart or managing to rebalance themselves and restore harmony. This can be seen in times where Ruby and Sapphire have very conflicting opinions or thoughts, such as in Keystone Motel and Keeping It Together. This is meant to show how relationships have their ups and downs. Sometimes in life you go through tough situations with loved ones where your relationship with someone is tested, either because they have a different opinion than you or because they reacted to a situation in a way that hurt you. Sometimes this ends in either a slightly unstable relationship until the issue is resolved, or it ends in splitting apart either temporarily or permanently. In Steven Universe's case, the splitting apart portion is rather literal and can sometimes end violently, like with Malachite in Super Watermelon Island and Sardonyx in Know Your Fusion. However, we know that fusions representing a relationship as much metaphorical as it is literal. In the episode We Need to Talk, after being introduced to Rainbow Quartz, Greg decides that he's going to attempt to fuse with Rose. Pearl states that he can't because he's a human, and that fusion is achieved by combining all involved parties' light together into one source. Since Greg doesn't have a gem, he has no light to combine, and so physical fusion is impossible for him to achieve. However, after Greg dances with Rose and has a deep conversation with her, Garnet notes that the two have successfully fused. This further proves and affirms that fusion both symbolically and literally represents the relationship between two or more people. As Garnet also says back in the episode Alone Together, a fusion is an experience, good or bad. Dancing is also used to form a fusion because it's meant to show two entirely different dance styles or personalities working harmoniously together to create a being that works. The fusion itself represents what the relationship of the involved is. For example, Opal as a fusion is calm and forgetful. It's often noted that she attains an inner peace that neither Pearl or Amethyst can achieve by themselves, and that they can only achieve it while together. This is because Amethyst is laid back while Pearl is uptight. While they're together, their conflicting personalities work harmoniously and allow them to balance each other out. The same is true while they're unfused. Amethyst teases Pearl and gets her to have fun, while Pearl will also remind Amethyst to stay on task and not get too sidetracked. This can be seen the easiest in the episode Last One Out of Beach City, where Amethyst encourages Pearl to go to a rock concert with her and Steven. Pearl wouldn't have gone out of her comfort zone to this concert had Amethyst not encouraged her to. Fusion doesn't always portray romantic relationships either. There are also plenty of platonic relationships portrayed through fusion, such as with Sunstone, Obsidian, Rainbow Quartz 2.0, and Smoky Quartz. These are all fusions that represent platonic familial relationships between Steven and his maternal figures. While we haven't gotten a chance yet to see most of these fusions in action, you can better see the type of relationship that Steven has with each of the crystal gems. The relationship relationship and character dynamic that he has with each of them is very different, and it's why each fusion has a differing personality. Fusion also doesn't always have to be healthy. Fusion can also be symbolic of toxic relationships, such as with Malachite. Lapis and Jasper are both bad for each other, and that is reflected in Malachite's behavior. For example, with Malachite, Jasper and Lapis are always fighting each other for control. Sometimes in toxic relationships, that could be the case. But with the basics out of the way, it's time to get onto some common misconceptions about fusions as a concept that I see commonly thrown around within the fandom. 1. Fusion is an allegory or the gem equivalent to sex. This one I feel like it shouldn't need to be stated, but it's one of the most common misconceptions that I've seen thrown around since Opal was first introduced to the series. Fusion does not represent sex, as the gems are sexless beings. They don't reproduce sexually, they reproduce asexually by cloning themselves, essentially. Therefore, there is no reason for sex to be in their vernacular or even be a concept that they would need to understand unless they were like Rose and wished to reproduce with a human. As I stated before this as well, not all fusions are ones formed with romantic reasoning. The majority of fusions that we see in the show now are formed from love, but it's familial and platonic love, not romantic love. It's an intimate experience for sure, but it isn't intimate in a sexual way. 2. Confusing fusion pronouns. After Change Your Mind era, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the pronouns of the new fusions. As I mentioned in the above point, gems are sexless beings. They have no biological sex because they do not sexually reproduce. They instead choose to be perceived as female and use she, her pronouns, but they are still non-binary beings. Non-binary meaning that they're neither female nor male and they don't identify as such. Even still, a non-binary person can use any pronouns that they want and still be non-binary. A non-binary person who uses she, her pronouns or he, him pronouns is just as valid as a non-binary individual who uses strictly they, them pronouns. You don't absolutely need to use they, them pronouns to identify as non-binary, and that's an extremely common misconception. For example, if a fusion were to use he, him pronouns, it doesn't automatically make them a male and vice versa, regardless if they use gendered pronouns or not. They aren't suddenly female or suddenly male now just because they fused. If you were wondering what the official fusion pronouns were for the fusions, here they are. If you want the source to this information, I will be linking it in the description. That being said, it is from the official Steven Universe podcast. Stevani uses they, them pronouns, Smoky Quartz uses they, them pronouns, Rainbow Quartz 2.0 uses he, him, and they, them pronouns, Sunstone uses they, them, and she, her pronouns, and Obsidian uses she, her, and they, them pronouns. And just as a quick fun fact, Rebecca Sugar, Steven Universe's creator, is non-binary and uses a combination of she, her, and they, them pronouns. That being said, these are really the only biggest misconceptions that I can think of. If you have any of your own misconceptions about fusion, be sure to leave them in the comments section down below. As always, there will be a poll about this video over on the community tab of my channel. And if you liked this video and would like to see more content like this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss anything from me. And I will see you all in the next video. Have an amazing day, everyone!